Hello and welcome to Big Bang Radio Spotlights. This is a show where we talk to independent artists from all around the world all about their music and their process for making it. I'm your host Nouran, and today I got to talk to singer-songwriter Mitchel Evan. Without any further ado, here is the interview. Mitchel, thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. First thing I'm gonna go ahead and ask you is, how would you describe the music that you typically create?
Yeah, my name is Mitchel Evan. I'm a singer-songwriter from Richmond, Virginia, and I write Americana, folk, alt country music, generally.
Okay, great. Could you describe to us a little bit about your creative process is like for music that you create?
You know, there's that quote that's been thrown around so many times. I'm not even sure who originally said it, but I think Bruce Springsteen and then maybe Jason Isbell said, amateurs sit around waiting for the muse while the rest of us just show up and write. And I adhere to that kind of school of thought, that as a writer, I don't only write when I'm feeling inspired. I write daily. So my process looks like I grab the nearest instrument to me when I have an idea, whether that's an acoustic guitar or banjo or a piano or an electric guitar or a bass, and I write down an idea. Sometimes it starts with a lyric, sometimes it starts with a melody, but most often one of those two rather than an instrumental line or a chord progression, although that does happen sometimes. And then once I have the melody, usually it's like a lyrical line coupled with a melody. Then I take that to the instrument and I try to find the chords to accompany it. I write a lot of songs in the car while I'm driving, and I can just sing them into my phone. And then once I get home, I try to find the chords that go along with that. So I write a lot of songs when I'm not near an instrument or when I'm not writing. When I'm doing something else and keeping my hands busy, my mind tends to wander.
Okay, so it's like an everyday thing for you. Like wherever you go, you always start writing and writing until you can arrive at your home and start coming up with melody and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I don't go anywhere without a pen and my notebook. I've filled up dozens and dozens of notebooks over the years, and I always have one that I'm working on. So yeah, I write daily, every day.
Awesome. Really nice. And has music always played a significant role in your life?
It has, yeah. I came from a fairly musical family. Neither of my parents were professional musicians, but my mom minored in music and played some piano and was passionate about music and the performing arts. And so it was kind of a thing in my family. Me and both my siblings did musical theater growing up. So that was kind of my introduction to music and performing arts, was through musical theater when I was very young, like 7, 8, 9. And I started taking piano lessons around the same time. So I was Tiny Tim in A Christmas Carol. I was Hansel and Gretel. I was in like a musical production of E.T. in high school. I did like Seussical, the musical. There's this thing called Spark in the Richmond area, which is called the School of Performing Arts in the Richmond community. And it's a big musical theater school here, and that was a big part of my childhood. And learning how to perform, learning how to improvise, learning how to be comfortable on stage. And I found that I really enjoyed being on stage, and I liked the attention, but I also liked getting outside of myself and wearing someone else's skin, pretending to be something else. Felt good.
talk a little bit about your third album that you released recently with the name Mitchel Evan. I want you to tell me a little bit about the inspiration behind this record, and can you share some of your favorite experience that you had during the recording of this record?
Sure. So, good question. Yeah, my last record that came out came out on March 19th of this year. So not too long ago. I decided to name it after myself. It's self-titled, so it's called Mitchel Evan. Not because it's my first release. It's not my debut record. I've had 2 albums come out before this one, and then a couple of other EPs with different projects and stuff. But it felt like the right time to name a record after myself. It felt like the truest expression of myself that I have achieved up until this point. And the inspiration for the record, I refer to the record as kind of a autobiographical concept album, in that it is a memoir of sorts. You know, it tells a specific period of time in my life. But the whole record is about one event or one series of events, you know, which tells the story of me falling in love. I was living in Colorado at the time. I fell in love with a new person. It was a hard and fast kind of love, and it ended just as quickly as it started. But long story short, this person that I was in love with fell ill and developed a terminal illness, and I went through a lot of that process with her, and it had a profound effect on me just by proximity, you know, and the grief that I experienced by losing that person. And it really just shattered my whole world, you know. I was feeling loss in a way that I have felt before, but I hadn't felt in a long time. And I felt loss of community. I lost my band of 3 years, broke up, and I left Colorado feeling defeated and confused and unsure, and I moved back to Virginia after 4 years of living out there. And this record was a way for me to piece together the events that had transpired and make sense of the things that had happened and the decisions I had made, and to discover the why of it all.
I am so sorry to hear about that, Mitchell, but I really thank you so much for sharing this with us and telling us about it, the process you went through, but very, very sorry to hear about that.
Thank you, Nouran.
I want to talk, out of all the albums you've created recently and in the past, which one would you say took you the longest with its creation process?
I think this last one, because for a few reasons. Initially, it was recorded rather swiftly. It was actually recorded at this house here. I'll get to more of that in a second, but I'll just give you a glimpse of the room real quick. This is the room where we made the album. Yeah, it's a home studio. It's 2 stories. It's got a big loft ceiling up there, and it was a beautiful space to make the album in. At the time, I was not living here. At the time, my friend Mitch Clem was living here with his partner Gina, and he had a fully developed recording studio in that room that he had been operating out of for about 3 years. And I had just met Mitch. This was about 3 years ago when I moved back here from Colorado. And I had this batch of songs from that experience, and I needed to record them. You know, I was still very much in the grief process, and I knew that the only way for me to work through it was to finish this project, you know. And so I linked up with Mitch through a mutual friend, and we recorded all of the songs live, basic tracks, as in bass, guitar, and drums were playing together, all in the same room at the same time. With a few different, we had like a cast of like 8 or 9 local musicians on the record. So we had like 3 drummers, 3 bassists. I did most of the guitar work, but we had a couple extra guitarists. So we had a lot of people sit in, and it was a lot of fun, and I made a lot of new connections, and it was a great way to like kickstart my career here in Virginia as an adult, because I left here when I was 19. So this was really my first time being a professional musician in the Richmond area and getting to know people. So it connected me with a lot of people, but the subsequent sessions that happened after those initial ones took a long time. It was a lot of a little here and a little there, you know, a couple hour sessions, doing overdubs and harmonies and building the band. And I didn't really have a local band here yet, so most of it was like piecemealed over another year. And then COVID happened, and the release of the record got pushed back like a whole year. So it took like 3 years from start to finish to complete this record, which I would not like to do again. I'm all, you know, I think something I'm always working towards is how to narrow the gap between conception and completion, you know.
Mm-hmm. I got you. Well, that's amazing, and thank you so much for showing us a tour of the little room you have in there, your house, of the instruments you have. I saw instruments in there, and I read that you are a multi-instrumentalist, and I just want to know a little bit about the instruments you play and which one you think is the most challenging one to play.
Sure. So I started, like I said, on piano when I was like 8 or 9, and then I picked up guitar when I was 12 or 13. And I just played those 2 instruments, although guitar was my primary instrument, for a good while. I didn't start playing banjo until about 2 years ago. And I've played a little bass here and there, always, but I really started playing bass this year, like in another band, and recording bass on my own stuff. So right now my primary instruments are guitar, banjo, piano, and bass. But I also play harmonica, especially when I'm doing solo acoustic sets, kind of Bob Dylan style acoustic guitar and harmonica. And I can figure out most things with strings on them, as long as there's not a bow involved. I don't play any horns or any brass instruments yet, but I want to learn as much as I can. I don't have any ideas about like I'm a guitarist, or I'm just a musician, and I instruments are like toys for me. They're fun, you know. So if I have one around, I'm gonna figure it out.
Awesome. Well, it's really great to hear about the instruments you play, and I hope that in the future you play more instruments and you learn it. And thank you so much. And real quick, Mitchell, what would you say has been your most memorable experience so far as a musician?
I've had quite a few, you know, big shows where like we felt really well received, or just really loved. I think this past year I've had a few moments like that. Our vinyl release show was just a few weeks ago, and it was a ton of fun. We there's a venue in Richmond called the Camel, and it's kind of a local hotspot for local bands and touring bands. And it was their first night back with general admission and like standing room, and the capacity had just lifted, and the room was full, and there was so much love, and it was everyone was really into it, and it felt so good to finally have the record on vinyl. So that was a big achievement for me, you know, having the physical product and having everyone come out and support was a lot of fun. But there's been some other milestones along the way.
I know it's really nice to have people back in, you know, in little spaces now to hear you perform and stuff after like a whole year not performing. So I'm sure that was a great feeling for you too. A few questions before we go. I know the music, like when it comes to the music industry, it's like a very challenging industry, and it can make some musicians like give up really quickly with this industry. So if you could change anything about this industry, what would it be?
If I could change anything about the music industry, I think that I would take less power. I would take I would prefer that major labels have less power in the industry, and I would like to see a rise to boutique independent record labels that are able to work on a localized and regional level to give a lot of attention and care to their artists and build rosters that are meaningful and cohesive. You know, I think local is the answer to everything. And just like I think that we should do away with all the Walmarts and all the national supermarkets so that we can have local grocery stores in every town, you know, so that communities can thrive instead of huge conglomerate corporations thriving. You know, I think that we should also do away with the major record labels that are hold all the keys to the kingdom and have held so much power for so long, and have stripped artists of their ability to create, or their personal and creative freedom to make their own decisions, so that smaller labels can really take care of artists, and so that they can compete on a larger level.
Yeah, I got you. Mitchel, I thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Last thing before we go is where can our listeners find you and your music?
Yeah, so you can find all of my information at www.mitchelevanmusic.com. That's Mitchel with one L, Evan no S. Again, Mitchel one L, Evan no S. You can also find me on all the socials at Mitchel Evan Music, or on Twitter at Mitchel Evan Muse. That's MUSE. Yeah.
Thanks to Mitchel for sitting down with us and talking all about his music. If you want to see more interviews just like this, you can find us online at Studio 67 NCC. Thank you all for watching. I'm Nouran Shaban, and remember to always stay positive.